Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Sutri Riyanti as Group 3 and I'm here with my partners Namirah Ashanti and kristiani Simanjuntak. Today we will explain about culture ideology. Okay, the first is a context of culture and translation. Different nations have different cultures. Then what is culture? To put it simply, culture refers to the entire ways of people. The simple definition implies that culture is the patterns of customs, traditions, social habits, values, beliefs, and language of society. Language and culture are closely related to each other. As cultures are diverse, so language are diverse. Understanding these foreign words or expressions is not an easy task, and this word may contain some culture connotations and obviously mirror cultural characteristics. Therefore, it is very difficult to translate them correctly. Okay, next, when we talk about context of culture and translation, we should know what is good translation. As I have explained in the previous video that good translation in fact is a converting process. Theoretically, a good translation should give its reader the same conception as what the native reader gets from the original. Because of the differences between the original language and target language, there exists the translation equivalence limitedness. This limitedness is not only manifest in the meaning of words, grammatical features, but also manifest in cultural differences more seriously. Relation between culture and translation. The purpose and characteristic of translation are to promote understanding among different countries and nations. Eugene, the foremost American translation theorist, defined translation as translation consists in reproducing the receptor language, the closest natural equivalent of the search language, first in terms of meaning and secondly in terms of style. However, to reproduce the closest natural equivalent in the target language is more or less influenced by the cultural differences. Because of the differences in histories, geographic locations, local custom, and religious beliefs, there are some translation obstacles which hinder people from understanding each other properly. So translation not only involves translation or interpreter's linguistic competence, but also calls for the acquaintance with the respective cultures. In this sense, translation means more than merely translating the words, sentences, or articles from the source language into the target language. It means also to transfer between cultures. The next material will be explained by Namirah Ashanti. Okay, Namirah, please.
The influence of culture on translation. Actually, the aim of translation are how to achieve cultural equivalence between the source language and the target language, and how to make up semantic zero caused by culture. Cultural equivalence mainly refers to semantic equivalence and pragmatic equivalence. Contain more cultural and connotation. More cultural connotation. B. Pragmatic equivalence. Pragmatic equivalence studies meaning not in isolation but in context. Context is considered as constituted by the knowledge shared by the speaker and the hearer and consists of linguistic context, paralinguistic context, social cultural context, and stylistic context. The paper focuses on social culture context, which includes historical culture, local culture, customer culture, and religious culture. Actually, pragmatic equivalence doesn't pay much attention to the meaning of a word or a sentence itself, but stresses the availability of the word that the receptor can understand properly in a certain context. Historical and cultural difference. It refers to the culture that comes into being in the process of historical development. A specific historical development are diverse, so culture are diverse. It is natural then that with difference in historical culture context, difficulties often arise in communication between nations or countries. Second, local culture difference. Local culture difference. Geographical location, natural environment, and social custom contribute a lot to the forming of local culture. Local culture difference mainly concern that some equivalent words in two languages actually have no same cultural connotation. Third, customary culture difference. All of might have a glimpse of the customary culture, for it comes into being in everyday life. Customary culture covers greetings, compliments, apologies, addresses, euphemisms, and taboos. And customary culture differences are unavoidable in translation. Fourth, religion culture difference. Religion is an integral part of human culture. Religion's culture can be reflected in many ways, such as religious belief, value, worship, taboo. Religions have a profound impact on people's life. As a result, we should notice the cultural difference in translation. B. Ideology and translation. First definition. Generally speaking, ideology refers to the semantic view and option of people, usually intellectuals, of a certain class, political party, or profession about the world and society. It is a popular belief in a certain country or group, hidden in its political behavior or ideological talks. Philosophy, political, art, aesthetic, religion, ethics are the various forms. At the same time, those semantic, social, and cultural beliefs and values of a person in a certain period of time are also under the category of ideology. Translation as an activity of cross-language, cross-cultural communication is undoubtedly subject to the influence and reception of ideology, and there is a direct and complicated relation between the two. Thank you.
Okay, the last material will be explained by Bella Kristiani Simanjuntak. Okay, Bella, please.
Okay, thank you for Sutri Riyanti. And the next is about the influence of ideology on translation. Ideology is the product of a certain society and culture. Translation is the type of behavior under a certain social and historical background. The translator is a person in a social background, and any of his translation activities should be constrained by the ideology of the mainstream society. The influence of ideology on translation is tremendous. Translation is not only the conversion of information between texts, but also a language activity dominated by external forces. Okay, next, the interaction between ideology and translation. The process of translation is an interaction with ideology. Translations, fundamentally speaking, is to import the ideology of foreign culture in the ideology of local culture. For the system of local values, This is a kind of foreign culture penetration, which means the extraction, subversion, and therefore a test of local culture.
Okay, thank you for all the presenter from we explained above. We know that translation is more closely related to culture factors in language. Without the culture knowledge, it is difficult to translate the original in the target language accurately. So after those examples, on the one hand, we may now get a clear idea of the relation between culture and translation. And on the other hand, we also may master the approaches of semantic and pragmatic equivalence in translation. It is true that these two aspects can open our eyes to a new perspective of understanding culture and translation. During the process of translation, the translator may actively conform to the mainstream ideology of the society. There will be deleting and correcting text in the original text that conflict with the mainstream ideology of the target language country. But the translators are not submissive to all ideologies of the target language culture. The influence of ideology on translation is constantly changing. The correct attitude is to recognize the manipulative or restrictive function of ideology on translation and avoid ideological generalization. However, since translation is a kind of cultural fashion, we should advocate the coexistence and complementary of multilingualism and multiculturalism. We should gradually eliminate the manipulation of ideology on translation, make translation choices rationally, and promote cultural interaction and culture construction of various ethnic groups. Okay, that's all from Group 3. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.